Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Joseph Hammer and I'm going to do an Eli 5 on my recent publication in the academic peer-reviewed journal Psychology of Men and Masculinity. I co-authored it with Patrick Heath and David Vogel. And the name of the paper is Fate of the Total Score, Dimensionality of the Conformity to Masculine Role Norms Inventory, the CMNI-46. So in plain language, what we did with this study is showed that this one instrument that is thought to measure how much a guy conforms to traditional masculine norms, such as being the importance of being emotionally tough, or the importance of being self-reliant and not needing help from other people, so those kind of traditional Western norms that are popular in North America, particularly amongst white men, that this CMNI-46 instrument that's supposed to measure conformity to masculine role norms is a good measure of 9 specific masculine norms and how much guys conform to each of these 9 specific masculine norms, but it is not a good or appropriate measure of how much guys conform to these masculine norms in general as a whole, like an overall tendency to conform to traditional ways of being a man. So that is the basic gist of the study. How we found that involves a lot of statistical stuff that's difficult to explain, but we used some techniques called bifactor analysis and ancillary bifactor measures, which have experienced a renaissance lately amongst statisticians and social scientists. We use these methods to help figure out that this instrument that a guy fills out on a sheet of paper or on an internet survey, and then the scores across the questions are averaged together in a certain way to create scores that are thought to measure how much they tend to conform to this norm or that norm or norms in general. So we found that this sort of instrument is a much better measure of specific masculine norms. So creating scores for conformity to each of these specific independent norms rather than measuring overall conformity. And why this is interesting is because this instrument has been used in both ways. Some people try and use it to measure one overall tendency to conform, and some people are interested in conforming to specific masculine norms. But our results say you can't just do either. This instrument is only appropriate for measuring these specific conformities, not overall conformity. So we want to discourage researchers from trying to use this instrument to measure overall conformity, because our data suggests it's not a reliable, it's not an accurate measure of that. And that's important to know because psychologists who study men and masculinity are often interested in looking at the relationship between how much a guy conforms to these traditional norms and various outcomes, like their self-reported well-being or their relationship satisfaction, their physical health, their willingness to go see a mental health professional when they're struggling with anxiety or depression. So there's been some research to suggest that conforming to these traditional masculine norms can sometimes be a strength and a lot of times can be a barrier to well-being or health. And so people want to use this instrument to try and measure conformity, and then use other instruments to measure self-esteem or relationship satisfaction or whatever, and then study the relationship between the two. Is there a correlation there? And so it's really important for researchers to know whether they can use this instrument to measure overall conformity or conformity to specific norms. Because if researchers want to look at overall conformity's relationship with other stuff, our results suggest you can't use this instrument for that. Another instrument may exist out there or could be developed that measures overall conformity, but this one ain't it. So that's important to know because we don't want to misuse instruments and interpret scores from these instruments as if they mean something that they don't actually. So that's why it's important to do studies like this that look at the psychometric, look at the statistical qualities of an instrument that researchers use to make sure it's working in the way it's supposed to. So that's my Eli 5. I hope that was helpful. Thanks a lot.